here are the possibilities. What do you know? It's a coincidence Mr. Pack is finishing his series on the Feast of Trumpets. What do you know? That God didn't have that in mind. Because I'm telling you, I've said it before, there are no closets, there's no niches of knowledge. We're done. I will not come back. I had to about put a gun to my own head to come up here. I'm exhausted. When you put all these things together, what is that moed? Coincidence. Ready? Two choices. Binary, here we go. What a coincidence the series ended on the moed of trumpets. Or no coincidence at all. God planned it thousands of years ago. It would never be any other day. But I didn't see it as recently as Tuesday. Let's rejoice in all that we've had. I really mean it. This series is over. And we ought to at least be intrigued by the curiosity. What a coincidence Mr. Pack is winding down in December. You know, wait for the next 8R25. Never mind, why did I wake up on Sunday morning and I'm sitting there getting the paper and I was literally sitting there drinking coffee, been awake for an hour or so. And I thought, wait a minute, just jumped into my head. Two choices, ready? One, coincidence. Two, God guided it. If I'm his messenger, we might suppose that's at least a reasonable possibility because it added perfectly and led to all of the additional things I'm going to tell you. It's perfect. Now, we're going to start to pile up an extraordinary number of coincidences here, if they're all coincidences. The compounding is spectacular. When you're sitting there, if you have any spirit of God in you, and I know you all, I believe, have a lot of it, you just have to look out and know there's not 50 more sermons left. Never mind 150 for 3 more years of mystery of God. Things like Christ emphasized, when all the oaks are shooting forth, you know the kingdom is near. They're shooting forth right now. Is it just a coincidence that we sit here today on May 26th and that's happening outside? Because no, I don't think about that. I'm sorry, but that was a bad analogy because it isn't going to be this time of year. It's going to be in January or some other time. Rejoice because we're seeing a growing fulfillment of a prophecy about what would happen first before Christ comes. And it's going to go apparently right up to the last hour. Feel like the last hour in anybody? What a coincidence that they picked trumpets when I happen to be giving that message. Now, let's imagine that Christ comes this Friday night, that our wait is over. Let's just imagine that. 1,335 days on the dot. Now, we're dealing with something that is a staggering coincidence or the greatest mystery that I've ever wrestled with my entire life since before most of you were born. The Day of Trees, the midday of Sabbath, is today. The series literally ends on the day that God showed Jeremiah, I'm going to hasten my word. It wasn't yesterday. I was wrong. That was the 14th. The middle of Sabbath is today. Literally, and I didn't contrive this. I didn't come this far in my life to lie and go into, and go into eternal death. So, as of Monday night, the best I can see, Daniel was unsealed. God hastens his word. You think it's a coincidence? Mid-Sabbath, that vision, Jeremiah saw that vision on the middle day of Sabbath. It's today. Unbelievable. The series ends today. I want you to think of 2 additional powerful facts. One is the Passover this year is a Sabbath. Oh, that's coincidental. What do you know? God just pulled that rabbit out of the hat. I wonder if he knows it is. Of course he does. And Christ ascended to heaven on Friday night. And those 2 angels told the disciples, this way you see him leaving, he's coming back. That fits Friday night in 10 days perfectly. That's big. Are these all, wow, the coincidences are just lining up. Well, we need the math teacher to tell us, or some genius, a math genius to tell us the odds that all these things are pointing to some Tuesday in August. But we're just trying to figure out, is it a coincidence that God built an extra 15 days into his plan in front of the start of another month. And God had, I guess, just hold this until the very end. And you're left to wonder, what an amazing coincidence. Mr. Pack has been preaching for over 2,400 days. And only in the last day or so did it all gel, and he came and laid it out. Oh boy, isn't it nice? It was right on time. And you're left to wonder, is that a coincidence? Or to sit there and let goosebumps develop on your goosebumps, because it wouldn't be a coincidence. Maybe the Bible's a coincidence, you see. Maybe our calling's a coincidence. Could it go next year? I see no way. I see the day approaching. This is a massive coincidence. I see no way. I don't see it could go to the next day. And I will not stand up here, brother. I'd have to stand up and lie to you. It looks like it's the new moon of Av, which is exactly 45 days to Elul 15. Now, if that's a coincidence, then we'll find out. That was shown in Ezekiel 40 as on the 10th of the month, which is the same day as the fast, which would be Sunday, which would fit perfectly, if you want to count 50 days, to trumpets. All of that is powerful. If it's a coincidence, somebody else is going to have to do better with math than I am. So I'm committed absolutely to this year. Or we've had an enormous coincidence. I figured this out right on Av 5. I just lucked out. Man, I won the lottery without buying a ticket. I figured this out right on time. What do you know? What a coincidence. You believe that? I can't believe that. So truly, this time alone, the schedule and dates and your church calendar alone tell you this is the end of the series. Godspeed, a couple days away. Good night. Now, you're left with, I mean, what a tale to be told. 40 weeks to the Feast of Trumpets. Were there two coincidences? Just so happened that it was 40 weeks to the day, and just so happened that he died on trumpets? Or was it God's design? That edict went out on September 4th, 2,478 years ago. This is September 3rd. I'm giving the final message on September 3rd. Tomorrow, that will have been 2,478 years to the day. Now, this is the other date in history, along with the fall of Babylon. The fall of Babylon would have been 15 days later. Big date in history. But so is this one 15 days before it. Why? Well, it's all a coincidence, don't you know? So I am giving this not one day off. I'm giving it dead on Jerusalem time, which began around noon today. And I didn't plan it because nobody thinks I planned this message. But I thought you'd find that interesting. Coincidence? Maybe, but staggering. You'd need a mathematician better than I to calculate the odds that we would hit such a thing. Is it, and I'm asking the question, is it a coincidence that after this last message, the Apostle Paul says, yet a little while and he that comes will come? So I've been waiting to sound on about every day but trumpets. But it's impossible to believe that he doesn't sound on trumpets. So is it a coincidence we're learning this right now? A coincidence we're learning right now that this man sounds on trumpets and we're in the shadow of trumpets? So is it coincidence we're connecting just these dots that I covered already, only hours before trumpets arrives in Jerusalem? That means that once in 76 years, Tevet 1 is again Christmas. And it so happens it's this year. So it occurs once in a period of a little over 3/4 of a century. Now, we can suppose that's a coincidence, but I don't think most of us would do that. You can count forward from 24 and get to 1335, or you could go to the end, which is the last verse of the book, take the 21 days and go backwards, and we have this staggering coincidence, if you will, A staggering coincidence that overshoots the 1335 by 6 days, going the other way, going backwards. Now, you can say, it's a coincidence, Mr. Pack, that you're learning this 96 hours before midnight in Jerusalem, a little less. It was there all along, but not going to be understood until God removed the last part of the mystery, made everything absolutely plain. Now, a coincidence that we learn it now? I guess you decide. 1 year starts 10 days, another ends them. Then they merge, as I've explained. Only God could reveal this. Christ comes on a Sabbath. It just so happens, I'm sure this is a coincidence, right? Odds are 6-1 against it. It just so happens that exactly 40 days before a Wednesday night day of the Lord is a Sabbath. You got to have a late New Year's, an early spring, no leap years, and no intercalary months. You can't have any of that. Now, go online and see how many years you're going to wait until that happens again. Or is it just an incredible coincidence that we're learning it this year in a year that fits, jot and tittle? I mean, hand and glove. Was it lucky coincidence? Ready? What a lucky coincidence that all of this last knowledge ends 2.5 days before Adar. Wow, did you draw the long straw? But here you've got a Moed, a regular day of unleavened bread, and you've got a seventh day, which is a cog, and how nice, 9 days left. Now, I can't stress this enough, because things are going to change with this picture. Is that a coincidence? It can't be. We're now on a very short clock, and this fast is almost immediately upon us. So the great question is, and just rediscovering it again late in the week, is this a coincidence that we're so close to it? If so, what a coincidence it is. That's what you'd have to conclude. Well, it just so happens, before we go on, I am talking to you on the 12th. Now, is that a coincidence as we read what follows? It just so happens that this is the 12th. It has to mean something. And again, is it just a grand coincidence that the 1 day out of 29 days in Adar, I am telling you about this? Is it a coincidence that I believe I became the seventh messenger on the 13th day? I literally believe that, on the 13th day of Adar, exactly 30 years ago. Israel was in Egypt for 430 years. Wow. And I give 430 messages. I guess the people who aren't listening won't hear that, and maybe it's not important. Maybe it's just a wild, coincidence. 7 days shall they purge the altar. Any idea what those 7 days might be? I never knew. Or is that just a coincidence? 7 days. To me, it's almost unbelievable, but I want to just tell you something that I discovered talking to the fellas the other day. I said, say, fellas, pull up the Chabad, which is the sacred calendar on the internet. I want to see the day that the Restored Church of God began. Would you please pull it up? It was May 1st, 24 years ago. Anybody want to take a guess what day it was? IR 15, 24 years ago. The odds that God would start his church by coincidence on the same day are over 360 to 1 against it. That's just a coincidence. All right, fine. To me, it's not. I don't offer it as a scripture. But you think how personally important that is to me. On IR 15, this IR 15, and I wonder if this is a coincidence, the series becomes exactly 390 weeks old. Now put that one along with the coincidence that we are on that exact same day a 24-year-old church, according to not Roman dates, we're off by 5 days, but a sacred year. As you hear all of this, you realize we couldn't possibly be ready for this. And I couldn't possibly have fulfilled, and it's all coming to me now. Coincidence, right? We're right on time. Wow. The dawn of Pentecost, starting from a dawn 10 days earlier, which would be Wednesday night or this coming Thursday morning, where there's 10 days starting from dawn to dawn. So they may have only been off by about 36 hours. Now, is that a coincidence? Astonishing if it is. And is it a coincidence that God put this in place, waited and put it in and out, and we couldn't understand it, and then put it in place, had this little kingdom in front of it, and finally we shrunk it from 6 months down to 10 days? It appears God is involving Pentecost and wants us to know. I mean, there is the possibility that it's a great coincidence that I finally put this together with about 96 hours to go. Or we're looking at the face of a giant mathematical coincidence. Anybody think that? Is it coincidental that all of this is lining up right in the face of 7 years and 7 months, right in the face of Tammuz? Surely that's just coincidental, right? But we should at least ask whether this kind of extraordinary alignment is to point to a moment just ahead. Either that or it's a 29-1 coincidence. And you could say much more. That's just that the 5th of Tammuz would happen to be the right date in June is 29-1. The fact that we were Tammuz 5 is its own extraordinary thing as we're coming into Tammuz and it's a Sabbath. Oh, lucky for us, 29-day month. And lucky for us, 354 days is next year. Wasn't last year, like 355 and some years 353. What do you know? It's 354 and we're in a 29-day month. So you need 6 days and the 24th of a 29-day month, add it and you get 360. Now that could be a coincidence. God says, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, wow, I look at that. The genesis of this series, and it should be called part 1, and then tonight would be 462, not 461, was the opening night of the feast, exactly 8 years. Now, you've got two choices. Before this Feast of Tabernacles, you have two choices. What a wild coincidence. Man, that's a coincidence. Let me tell you what Elul 14 is. It's the exact date. This will stun you, and it's more proof. The exact date of Artaxerxes' decree. So the last year of the 490, we got one more year to go, literally would end exactly the day Artaxerxes gave his decree across those 490 years, most of them gone by the time Christ was crucified. Is that a coincidence? Of course not. God said on Av 10, start watching for my word. Do you know how many days after Av 10 is trumpets? Now the fall feast? 50 days. Is that a coincidence? When is it most likely that Elijah would sound a trumpet? Now that's not really very hard, is it? The Feast of Trumpets. When is he most likely at the same time to lift up his voice like a trumpet? Feast of Trumpets. Or else those are coincidences. So a Sabbath, the Feast of Tabernacles, being the Moed in the midst of the years, is the most logical. It's still, by the way, at the dead middle of 16 years, of 8 years explaining these things and 8 more through the last days to the millennium. It's still that, we lost that if we went back to trumpets, but that's back in play. Exactly 8 years before exactly 8 more. You can't make that up. Or there's some wild coincidences. Now you have two choices in a way to say, well, Mr. Pack, you sure you got this placed right? Maybe this massive attack on the last great day of the feast, when we believe the kingdom of God is near, is a coincidence. Those are your choices. And someone has to tell them all these things, whether it's Sabbat 1 or not. The timing is suspiciously close. It could be an uncanny coincidence, Mr. Pack. Yes, it could. I hope it's actually not that. I hope it's sooner. And the 7 years is exactly 367 7-day weeks, 2,541 days, ending after 2,000 years. Now, you think that's a coincidence? All of that works perfectly. Is it a coincidence that the 1335 just happens to line up, touch that day, and you hit that wonderful day? What day would you want the saints who are going to get away? The evidence becomes overwhelming. It would almost be an act of deception by God to lay out all of this and say, sorry, fooled you, joke's on you. All of this is a surrogate for someday you'll never know, even though the series is ending and you know Pentecost is close. Oh, by the way, what a nice coincidence that is. Oh, isn't that nice? How lucky are we? It's not a coincidence, of course. You know, it's interesting, at the exact moment when I saw this, right as we were reading it, a huge eagle flew right by my window yesterday. I'd known about the 4-year principle, but I'd not reviewed this, and landed nearby for a while. Huge. A lot of people pulled out binoculars. It then circled and landed again, and then, flew and hung out down on a different power pole. So I look at this. Coincidence or confirmation? The Saints' flight on the new moon of Elul 1 is on a Saturday night. Perfect. Surely, no one thinks that all of this is just a wonderful coincidence. What an amazing coincidence that only fits 24-25. 2024 and 2025. What a statement it becomes that God would give us about the end of this calendar year. It would be years, it is years, before things would align this way again. And I needed to know we've crossed the first threshold and the end is in sight. And seeing the 45 days that were left over back there with Christ were helpful. Is that just a coincidence? That it's exactly 45 days? When Jeremiah depicts 45 days, Daniel says 45 days, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts depict 45 days, that's the most spectacular coincidence you will ever meet in your life. And since that's the first thing upon us, I just cited Christ's baptism, and that's when he became the anointed prince. What an amazing coincidence. That'd be one other side, just one other side of the decagon. 45 days at the end of Daniel, it's 2,539 days. And you would have to add 41 to it. There went God's use of 40 if he wanted to use it. So 2 years has got problems as well. Now, is all of this a coincidence? So why is my last name Passover? It's never to be used? If Haggai's name was important and God sent a hint, Malachi's name means messenger. That's interesting. He was a messenger. Names are important. Or just a coincidental thing that's my last name. And I would say, no, it's not. I was mentioning my parents. The odds of two people named Passover, the odds of any couple being married on the first day of Passover are 364 to 1 against it. That are the odds. The odds of two people whose last name was Passover getting married on the day of their name, I do just tens or hundreds of thousands, of the millions of times to 1. Is that a coincidence? I married a woman who will have a birthday. I think she's going to be about 40, 2 days before Passover. And her name is Vernal. Her name is Vernal, and she was born on April 10th, on a year back there somewhere. I don't know. When was I ever going to discover the 24th? Anybody think it's just an incredible coincidence that after 59 years in God's way and studying that journey, that right before the 24th, about 2.5 days ago, I would discover this day. Unbelievable. We saw what Peter said, and of course what Moses wrote. Is it a coincidence that Paul cites Pentecost in detail? And we're steaming toward the finish line. Well, maybe it's just a coincidence that we're coming near the end. Maybe. It's 9.5 years. There are a lot of reasons to think you can't go another year. So that ought to be on our mind. If you drive fifth, and over here you say Pentecost, 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 all the way through the Bible, and then they line up as the series is ending, then you're left with, you got one of two things is true. It's a wild coincidence, or it's the year it happens. And this church, RCG, began on IR 15, second Passover, but the 15th in its own way was just as important. It was important to start this church on the 15th, or that was just a coincidence, but not the kingdom on the 15th. And is it just a coincidence that the 15th of Sivan, the full moon of Sivan, comes on the 4th day of the week this year? That doesn't give you goosebumps, then you needed more coffee at lunch. It might be 500 years before that would happen again. Or is that a coincidence? Dawn in Jerusalem is 5:34. When the summer solstice hits, 7 minutes later at 5:41, here it would be June 20th, there it would be June 21st. That's astonishing. I mean, now we're up to some fairly serious coincidences here. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. It's for a moed, and we're going to go into that moed to apparently, if we're correct, 5:41 in Jerusalem, 7 minutes after dawn. Or we're not. I mean, or this is just, we're just piling up a coincidence here. Who knows when it would do that again? So we're looking at a staggering coincidence. It's just unbelievably coincidental. I have never seen 4 days in a row foretold to be as hot as they are now. Now, is that a coincidence? Where does that put us? We learned last week for the first time that blazing, meaning glaring heat, really hot, is a sign of the time. And then this happens. 360,000 days. That's the length of 1,000 years and days. I want you to divide that, calculator or pencil, whatever you're doing, divide that by 2,500. Everybody do it. Everybody do it. What do you get? Now, is this a coincidence? Exactly 144. Well, that's some fairly serious math we're into right here.